The young Catharian soldiers sat in perfect rows, their purple scales gleaming under the bright academy lights. Their eyes, large and golden, watched Commander Zektar as he limped to the front of the classroom. His left arm was missing, replaced by a crude metal prosthetic. Deep scars ran across his face, and his once-proud military posture was bent with age and pain. Zektar looked at the eager faces before him. These younglings had never seen real war, had trained with energy weapons and studied battle tactics, but they knew nothing about the horror he had witnessed. They thought war was glorious. They thought the Catharian Empire was invincible. They were wrong about everything. Today, I will tell you about the humans, Zektar began, his voice rough and tired. You have heard stories. You have seen the reports. You do not understand what we faced 3 cycles ago. You cannot understand until you hear the truth. Young cadet near the front raised his hand. Commander, our history books say we won that war. The humans surrendered in 18 days. Zektar's laugh was bitter and cold. Yes, they surrendered, but not for the reasons you think. Listen carefully, and I will tell you why our entire empire still shakes with fear when we hear their name. The commander moved to the large display screen behind him, and, with his good hand, he activated a star map showing the outer rim of known space. A small yellow star appeared, surrounded by several planets. This is the Sol system, he said. 3 cycles ago, our scouts discovered it during a routine expansion survey. The third planet from their stars showed signs of primitive life. We called it Planet 847C. The locals call it Earth. Zektar pressed another control, and images appeared on the screen. Cities with tall buildings, roads filled with wheeled vehicles, and flying machines that used burning fuel to stay in the air. Look at this technology, he continued. Chemical rockets, internal combustion engines, radio waves. They'd barely discovered how to split the atom. Our scouts laughed when they sent their reports back to High Command. The cadets chuckled among themselves. Even they could see how backward. This technology was compared to their energy shields and faster-than-light ships. Admiral Vextal was chosen to lead the conquest, Zektar said. He was our greatest military mind. He had conquered 47 worlds for the Empire. He called the human mission a training exercise for new recruits. Zektar paused and looked. At each cadet in turn, Vextal studied the humans for months before we arrived. He watched their wars through hidden sensors. He saw them fighting each other with crude projectile weapons and chemical explosives. He watched them argue and fight over resources, religion, and territory. The screen showed grainy footage of human conflicts. Soldiers with metal weapons, tanks rolling across battlefields, and aircraft dropping bombs. The Admiral was pleased, Zektar continued. Here was a divided species that could not even unite against itself. They would be easy to conquer and enslave. The High Council approved the mission immediately. A female cadet spoke up. But Commander, why didn't they just surrender when they saw our ships? Any intelligent species would recognize superior technology. Zektar's eyes grew distant. That is what we thought. That is what every civilized species in the galaxy would do. But humans are not like other species. We learned this lesson far too late. The commander activated new footage on the screen. It showed sleek Catharian warships approaching Earth's moon. We sent our standard first contact protocol, he said. A single diplomatic vessel approached their largest space station. Captain Jake Morrison commanded their primitive station. He seemed calm when our ambassador Dexenel made contact. Zektar played an audio recording. Human voice was steady and curious. Welcome to Earth space. I'm Captain Morrison. We're honored to meet another intelligent species. How can we help you? Notice the tone, Zektar told his students. No fear, no awe at our superior technology. Just curiosity. We should have recognized this as a warning sign. The recording continued. Ambassador Dexenel's voice was cold and commanding. Primitive humans, you will submit to the Catharian Empire. Prepare your leaders for surrender negotiations. Resistance will result in your destruction. There was a long pause in the recording. Then Captain Morrison spoke again. I'll need to discuss this with my superiors. Can we arrange a formal meeting to talk about this? The cadets looked confused. One asked, why didn't he surrender immediately? Our ships could have destroyed his station with one shot. That is what we thought too, Zektar replied. But humans do not think like us. They sent a diplomat named Lisa Carter to meet with Admiral Vexthal. She was small, even by human standards. She had no weapons, no guards, just data tablets and a smile. Zektar showed them footage of the meeting. Lisa Carter sat across from the massive Admiral Vexthal in his war room. She looked tiny next to the armored Catharian leader, but she showed no fear. Dr. Carter was a xenobiologist, Zektar explained. She studied alien life. She asked Vexthal questions about our culture, our biology, our history. She took notes on everything. The Admiral thought she was gathering information to help with their surrender. The recording played Lisa Carter's voice. This is fascinating. Your technology is incredible. We've been hoping to meet other intelligent life for decades. There's so much we could learn from each other. The Admiral was pleased, Zektar continued. He thought the humans were impressed by our power. He gave them 3 standard days to prepare for surrender. He even allowed them to choose their own surrender ceremony location. Another cadet raised her hand. What did they choose? Zektar's expression grew dark. They chose a meeting place in their capital city. Washington, they called it. But they also sent a message to Admiral Vexthal. It was delivered by their military leader, General Chris Bennett. The screen showed a recording of General Bennett. He was an older human with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations. Admiral Vexthal, Bennett's recorded voice said, "We appreciate your offer, but we must respectfully decline. Earth belongs to humanity. We're willing to discuss peaceful coexistence, but we will not surrender our world." The cadets gasped. Even they understood that refusing a Catharian ultimatum meant death. The Admiral was furious, Zektar said. No species had ever refused our demands. He increased the fleet size to 200 ships. He planned to make an example of Earth that would be remembered across the galaxy. Zektar limped to his chair and sat down heavily. His missing arm ached, and old wounds throbbed with the memory of what came next. We thought we knew everything about warfare, he continued. We had studied every military strategy used by 47 different species. We had weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop any known force. We were the greatest. Military power in the galaxy, he looked at each cadet again. But we had never fought humans before. We had no idea what we were walking into. A young male cadet leaned forward eagerly. What happened next, Commander? Did you destroy their cities? Did they finally surrender? Zektar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. We attacked at dawn on the 4th day. 200 Catharian warships descended on Earth like the fist of an angry god. We expected to find them cowering in their cities, ready to beg for mercy. He paused and stared at the floor. Instead, we found empty cities and death traps. The humans had vanished like smoke, and the real war was just beginning. The classroom fell silent. Even the young cadets could sense the horror in their commander's voice. But that, Zektar said, looking up at them with haunted eyes, is a story for tomorrow. Class dismissed. As the students filed out, chattering nervously among themselves, Zektar remained in his chair. He stared at the star map still glowing on the screen, showing that small yellow star so far away. 3 cycles. Later, and he still had nightmares about what the humans had taught them about war. The next morning, Commander Zektar entered the classroom to find his students already seated and waiting. Their eager faces reminded him of his own youth before he learned the terrible truth about humans. He moved slowly to his position at the front, his metal arm clicking softly with each step. Yesterday you learned about first contact, he began without ceremony. Today I will tell you about the first battle. The battle that should have ended the war in our favor within hours. Zektar activated the display screen, showing the Earth as it appeared from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, and brown continents spread across the planet's surface. Admiral Vexthal positioned our fleet in perfect attack formation, he continued. 200 ships arranged in the standard conquest pattern. I was aboard the flagship as a young tactical officer, eager to prove myself in battle. A cadet raised her hand. Commander, what was your job during the attack? Communications, Zektar replied. I listened to their radio signals, their television broadcasts, their military channels. I was supposed to track their panic and confusion as we destroyed their cities. The screen changed to show the Catharian battle fleet in orbit around Earth. The ships were massive, their dark hulls bristling with energy weapons. The admiral gave the order at dawn, Zektar said. Every ship opened fire simultaneously. We targeted their largest population centers first. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. The energy beams should have turned those cities into glass and ash. He paused, remembering that moment. The flash of weapons fire, the satisfaction of a perfect attack, the certainty of victory. But something was wrong, he continued. Our sensors showed the energy strikes hitting their targets, but there were no explosions, no fires, no screaming. Crowds fleeing through the streets. A young male cadet looked confused. Were their shields stronger than expected? Zektar laughed bitterly. They had no shields, no energy weapons, no technology that could stop our attack. But they had something else. Something we never expected. The screen showed images of empty city streets. Cars sat abandoned in perfect lines. Buildings stood undamaged but vacant. Traffic lights blinked at intersections with no traffic to control. The cities were empty, Zektar said. Completely empty. 12 billion humans had vanished in 3 days. Our intelligence said it was impossible to evacuate populations that large in such a short time. The cadets exchanged worried glances. Even with their advanced technology, the Catharians needed weeks to evacuate a major city. I monitored their communications during the evacuation, Zektar continued. I expected chaos, panic, confusion. Instead, I heard calm voices giving directions, parents helping children pack essential items, elderly humans being carried by neighbors. Everyone moved with purpose and organization. He played an audio recording of human voices during the evacuation. The words were in their primitive language, but the translation appeared on screen. Bus Route 7 is clear for the next group. Remember, only essential items. Medical supplies are waiting at checkpoint 3. Stay calm, stay together, we've practiced this. Practiced, Zekta repeated the word. They had practiced evacuating their entire civilization. While we were planning their conquest, they were planning their survival. A female cadet spoke up. But Commander, where did they go? Our sensors should have detected such large population movements. Underground, Zektar answered. They had built tunnel systems under every major city, not just small shelters, but entire underground cities. They connected subway systems, natural caves, and specially built bunkers into a network that could hide billions of people. The screen showed cross-section diagrams of human cities, revealing the hidden world beneath. Tunnels connected shopping centers to subway stations. Underground farms provided food. Hidden factories continued producing supplies. This construction took decades, Zektar explained. They had been preparing for our arrival since they first detected our radio signals from other conquests. They knew we were coming, and they prepared. The revelation stunned the cadets. The idea that a primitive species could plan so far ahead was beyond their understanding. Admiral Vexel was furious, Zektar continued. He ordered ground troops to secure the empty cities and flush out the hidden humans. I was assigned to the first landing party. Zektar's voice grew quieter as he remembered that day. We landed in what they called Central Park in New York City. Soldiers, equipped with the finest weapons and armor in the galaxy. The screen showed footage from helmet cameras. Catharian soldiers moved through empty streets, their weapons ready, their formation perfect. The park was beautiful, Zektar said. Green grass, tall trees, peaceful ponds, looked like a perfect place for a command post. We set up our equipment and began scanning for underground entrances. He paused, touching the scars on his face with his good hand. That's when we met our first human soldier, a man named Danny Foster. He was hiding in a tree, wearing clothes that made him blend with the bark and leaves. Our advanced sensors never detected him. The footage showed a human dropping from a tree branch, landing among the Catharian soldiers. He looked ordinary, with brown hair and average height. He carried crude weapons and wore simple camouflage. Foster should have been captured or killed immediately, Zektar said. He was one human against 2,000 trained warriors. Instead, he did something that changed everything. The cadets leaned forward, eager to hear what happened next. He smiled, Zektar said. Then he spoke into a small radio device. Said was welcome to Earth. After that, the ground exploded. The helmet camera footage showed dirt and debris flying everywhere. Catharian soldiers scattered as hidden explosives detonated under their feet. The peaceful park became a battlefield. in seconds. The humans had buried explosive devices throughout the park, Zektar explained. Not advanced weapons, just simple chemical bombs connected to remote triggers. What? But they were placed with perfect precision. The screen showed the aftermath. Raiders dotted the landscape. Catherian equipment lay scattered and broken. Soldiers stumbled through smoke and dust, their perfect formation destroyed. That was my first lesson about human warfare, Zektar said. They don't fight fair. They don't follow rules. They use their environment as a weapon. A cadet asked nervously. What happened to Danny Foster? He vanished, Zektar replied. One. The moment he was there, the next he was gone. Our sensors couldn't track him. It was like he had become part of the landscape. The commander activated new footage showing other landing sites around the world. The same pattern repeated everywhere. Empty cities, hidden traps, and humans who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Every building was a trap, Zektar continued. Every street corner hid explosives. Every doorway could conceal an enemy. The humans had turned their own cities into weapons against us. He showed images of Catherian soldiers trying to enter buildings, only to trigger elaborate trap systems. Elevators that became crushing chambers. Staircases that collapsed into pits. Office buildings that became mazes with no exits. In the second day of ground operations, we lost 300 soldiers, Zektar said. Not to enemy weapons, but to traps and ambushes. The humans were fighting a war we didn't understand. The screen showed a new recording. Human woman named Amy Rogers led a group of resistance fighters through subway tunnels. They moved quickly and quietly, carrying improvised weapons and wearing mismatched clothing. Captain Rogers was a subway train operator before the war, Zektar explained. She knew every tunnel, every station, every maintenance passage in the city. She turned her knowledge into a weapon. The footage showed Rogers and her team emerging from a subway grate behind a Catherian supply depot. They moved with practiced efficiency, placing explosive charges on equipment and ammunition supplies. It destroyed our supply lines faster. Then we could protect them, Zektar said. Every time we established a base, humans would appear from underground and destroy it. They knew their own territory better than we could ever learn it, another cadet asked. Didn't our technology give us an advantage? Zektar's expression grew dark. That's when we learned the second lesson about humans. They learned faster than any species we had ever encountered. The screen showed images of human engineers examining captured Catherian equipment. A woman named Helen Brooks led a team of scientists as they carefully took apart alien weapons and devices. Dr. Brooks was a nuclear engineer, Zektar explained. She had no experience with our technology, but she understood the principles. Within days, she was building copies of our weapons. The footage showed humans testing crude but functional copies of Catherian energy weapons. The devices were larger and less efficient than the originals, but they worked. They couldn't build our advanced technology, Zektar said, but they could build simple versions that served their purposes. More importantly, they could build weapons specifically designed to destroy our equipment. The screen showed human weapons that fired electromagnetic pulses, devices that could disable Catherian shields, and traps that used the aliens' own technology against them. By the end of the second day, we weren't fighting primitive humans anymore, Zektar said. We were fighting humans armed with modified versions of our own weapons. Commander Zektar stood before his class, but today he seemed older and more tired than before. His students noticed the tremor in his good hand as he activated the display screen. The images that appeared showed burning Catherian ships floating in the darkness of space. Day 3, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. The day we learned that humans don't just fight on their own planet. They take the war to you. A young cadet shifted nervously in her seat. Commander, how could primitive humans attack? Our ships in space? They barely had chemical rockets. Zektar turned to look at her with hollow eyes. That is what we thought too. Admiral Vextel was confident our fleet was safe in orbit. Earth's humans had no way to reach us. We were wrong. About that, just like everything else, the screen showed footage from the Catherian flagship. Engineers worked frantically at control panels while alarms blared in the background. It started with their communications, Zektar continued. On day 3, every Catherian ship began receiving strange signals, not distress calls or surrender offers, something else entirely. He played an audio recording. Strange sounds filled the classroom. Rhythmic beating, harsh voices, and electronic noise that seemed designed to disturb rather than communicate. They called it music, Zektar explained. But it was unlike any music known to civilized species. It was aggressive, violent, designed to create fear and confusion. They broadcast it directly into our ship's communication systems. A male cadet looked confused. Music is a weapon? To humans, everything is a weapon, Zektar replied. But this was just the beginning. While our communications officers tried to block their broadcasts, human engineer Tony Walsh was leading a team of scientists in a project that should have been impossible. The screen changed to show grainy footage of humans working in underground facilities. They moved with desperate urgency, welding pieces of metal together and connecting crude electronics. Walsh had studied the wreckage from our damaged ships that crashed on Earth, Zektar said. In 72 hours, he and his team built something that changed the entire war. The image shifted to show a strange craft rising from Earth's surface. It looked like a combination of human and Catherian technology, crude but functional. They called it the Freedom Fighter, Zektar continued. It was commanded by Captain Julie Adams, a human who had never flown in space before that day. Shouldn't have been able to operate it, let alone fight with it. The cadets watched in stunned silence as the footage showed the hybrid ship approaching the Catherian fleet. It moved erratically, not following standard flight patterns. Captain Adams did something no civilized pilot would ever do, Zektar said. She rammed her ship directly into one of our destroyers at full speed. The explosion on screen lit up the classroom. Debris scattered in all directions as both ships were destroyed in the collision. We thought it was an accident, Zektar continued, primitive pilot who lost control of her craft. Then 2 more human ships appeared from Earth's surface. The screen showed more hybrid vessels, each one different from the others. They were built from salvaged parts and desperate innovation, but they flew and they fought. Commander Rick Stone led the second wave, Zektar said. He was a military pilot who had flown their primitive aircraft. His ship was armed with modified versions of our own weapons. The footage showed Stone's vessel engaging a Catherian cruiser. The human ship was smaller and less powerful, but it moved in ways that defied military logic. Stone used kamikaze tactics, as Zektar explained to his confused students. He would fly directly at our ships, firing all weapons, with no regard for his own survival. His goal was not to win the battle, but to do as much damage as possible before dying. A female cadet raised her hand shakily. But Commander, that's not warfare. That's suicide. That's what we thought, Zektar replied. Every military doctrine in the galaxy teaches that preserving your forces is essential for victory. Humans don't follow that rule. They throw away their lives to achieve tactical advantages. The screen showed Stone's ship colliding with a Catherian vessel. Both exploded in brilliant fire, but the human had destroyed a ship 10 times more valuable than his own crude craft. But Stone's sacrifice served a purpose, Zektar continued. While we were distracted by his attack, other human ships were studying our fleet formations and weapon capabilities. They were learning how to fight us. New footage appeared showing human ships using hit-and-run tactics. They would appear suddenly, strike at Catherian vessels, then retreat before retaliation could reach them. Lieutenant Brad Murphy pioneered their boarding tactics, Zektar said. He would pilot small craft directly into our ship hangars, then lead teams of human soldiers inside our vessels. The cadets watched in horror as humans in primitive spacesuits forced their way into Catherian ships. They moved through corridors, with weapons drawn, fighting hand-to-hand with alien crews. Murphy's teams had one goal, Zektar explained: capture our technology and learn our weaknesses. They didn't try to hold the ships they boarded. They would steal equipment, plant explosives, then escape in their small craft. The screen showed the aftermath of a boarding action. Crew members huddled in corners, too terrified to fight back against the strange aliens who had invaded their ship. That's when we learned the third lesson about humans, Zektar said. They don't just fight to win battles. They fight to learn how to win the war. He activated new footage showing human facilities on Earth's surface. Scientists worked around the clock, examining captured Catherian technology and building improved versions of their hybrid ships. Dr. Susan Clark led their biological warfare division, Zektar continued. She had studied samples of Catherian blood and tissue from our wounded soldiers. Within days, she had developed weapons specifically designed to target our physiology. The cadets looked sick as Zektar described weapons that could poison Catherian air supplies or disrupt their nervous systems. The humans had turned biology itself into a weapon. But the most terrifying development came from their military leadership, Zektar said. Admiral Kate Perry had taken command of human space operations. She did something no other species had ever attempted. The screen showed multiple human fleets moving through space simultaneously. They attacked Catherian supply lines, communication relays, and support vessels, all at the same time. Perry divided her forces and attacked us in 17 different locations, Zektar explained. Our military doctrine said this was impossible. Dividing your forces makes you weaker in each location, but humans don't follow our rules. The footage showed Catherian commanders trying to respond to multiple attacks. Their ships moved frantically between battle sites, unable to defend everything at once. Each human attack force was small and weak compared to our ships, Zektar continued. But they coordinated their attacks perfectly. While we sent forces to defend one location, they would strike somewhere else, Cadet asked. How could they coordinate so many attacks without advanced communication systems? They didn't. Need advanced systems? Zektar replied. They had something better. They understood each other. The screen showed recordings of human communications during battle. Short, simple messages that somehow conveyed complex tactical information. Human commanders could predict what their allies would do without detailed orders, Zektar explained. They thought alike, fought alike, and trusted each other completely. This gave them an advantage we couldn't counter. New footage showed the results of human coordination. Catherian ships found themselves surrounded and outnumbered despite having superior technology. By day 5, we had lost 30 ships, Zektar said. Not to superior weapons or better technology, but to human tactics that made no sense according to civilized warfare. The screen displayed a recording of Admiral Vextel in his command center. The proud Catherian leader looked confused and desperate as reports poured in from across the battle zone. The admiral called for reinforcements from the home fleet. Zektar continued, said we were facing an enemy that fought like wild animals, rather than intelligent beings. A young cadet spoke up nervously. But Commander, if humans fight like animals, wouldn't that make them easier to defeat? Zektar looked at the student with pity. That's what we thought. We were fighting intelligent animals. But we forgot one important fact about animals. Paused, letting the silence build tension in the classroom. When animals are cornered, when their survival is threatened, they become more dangerous than any civilized being can imagine. The screen showed new footage of human attacks. This time, the tactics were even more extreme. Human pilots flew there. Ships directly into Catherian vessels, using their own craft as guided missiles. Commander Gary Mitchell led deep space raids on our supply convoys, Zektar said. His ships would appear from nowhere, destroy our cargo vessels, then vanish before our escorts could respond. The footage showed the aftermath of Mitchell's raids. Catherian supply ships drifted empty in space, their crews captured or killed, their cargo stolen or destroyed. Mitchell's teams didn't just destroy our supplies, Zektar continued. They studied our cargo manifests, our shipping routes, our communication codes. Every raid made them smarter and more dangerous. A female cadet asked quietly, what did they do with the captured supplies? Commander Zektar entered the classroom with slower steps than usual. The students noticed dark circles under his eyes, as if he had not slept well. The weight of the memories he was sharing seemed to grow heavier with each passing day. Today, I will tell you about Nancy Williams, he began without his usual pause. The human prisoner who made us understand the truth about their species. The display screen showed a small room aboard a Catherian ship. A young human woman sat calmly at a metal table, her hands folded in front of her. She looked ordinary, with brown hair and simple clothing, but her eyes held a strange intensity. Williams was captured during a raid on one of our supply depots, Zektar explained. She was just a technician, not a soldier. We thought she would be frightened and eager to cooperate. A cadet raised her hand. What did she tell you about human military plans? Laugh was bitter. She told us nothing about military plans. Instead, she asked us questions. Questions that revealed how little we understood about the war we had started. The screen played audio from Williams' interrogation. Her voice was calm and curious, showing no fear of her alien captors. "How long have you been watching us?" Williams asked in the recording. "Did you study our history before you decided to invade? Did you understand what kind of species you were attacking?" The Catherian interrogator's voice was impatient. "Answer our questions, human. Tell us about your military weaknesses." Williams' response surprised everyone. "I'm trying to help you understand your own weaknesses. You attacked a species that has been fighting wars for 10,000 years. Did you think we would be easy targets?" Zektar paused the recording and faced his students. "That's when we began to realize our mistake. We had studied human technology and found it primitive. We had watched their recent conflicts and seen crude weapons, but we had not studied their history." The screen changed to show images from human historical records. Ancient armies with metal weapons, medieval castles under siege, and modern battlefields covered in smoke and fire. "Williams spent 3 days teaching us about human warfare," Zektar continued. She explained how humans had fought each other for thousands of years, developing tactics and strategies we had never encountered. A young male cadet looked confused. "But Commander, if humans fight each other so much, wouldn't that make them weaker as a species?" "That's what we thought," Zektar replied. Williams corrected our thinking. She said human wars had made them stronger, not weaker. Every conflict taught them new ways to fight. The recording resumed with Williams' voice explaining human military evolution. "We've fought with sticks and stones, swords and shields, gunpowder and bullets, tanks and aircraft," she said. "Every generation learns from the last. Every war makes us better at the next one." Zektar showed his students images of human weapons. Throughout history, stone axes evolved into metal swords, which became firearms, which developed into advanced missiles. "But technology was not the most important lesson Williams taught us," Zektar said. She explained something far more terrifying about human nature. The screen displayed footage of human soldiers throughout history. Warriors charging into battle, sailors fighting on stormy seas, pilots diving their aircraft at enemy targets. Humans don't just fight to win, Williams had explained in the recording. They fight to survive. When survival is threatened, they become capable of anything. A female cadet asked nervously, what did she mean by anything? Zektar activated new footage showing recent human tactics against Catherian forces. The images were disturbing even to hardened military students. By day 10 of the war, humans had captured 3 of our colonies, Zektar said. General Alan Cruz led the assault on Kitharos Minor. His tactics violated every rule of civilized warfare. The screen showed human forces attacking a Catherian settlement. Instead of targeting military installations first, they struck at civilian infrastructure, communication centers, and supply lines simultaneously. Cruz didn't try to defeat our military forces directly, Zektar explained. He made it impossible for them to function. No communication, no supplies, no support from orbit. Our troops surrendered within hours. The footage showed Catherian soldiers laying down their weapons, defeated not by superior firepower, but by isolation and confusion. Captain Gary Mitchell had perfected deep space raiding tactics, Zektar continued. His ships would appear in our home systems, attack civilian targets, then disappear before our defense fleets could respond. New images showed the aftermath of Mitchell's raids. Catherian mining stations destroyed, communication satellites disabled, trade routes disrupted. Mitchell's goal was not military victory, Zektar explained. He wanted to spread fear among our civilian population. He succeeded. The screen displayed recordings from Catherian news broadcasts. Civilian leaders demanded protection from human raids. Colony governors called for evacuation of non-essential personnel. While Mitchell terrorized our civilians, Dr. Betty Lewis was perfecting weapons that turned our own biology against us, Zektar said with visible disgust. She had developed airborne agents that could disable Catherian nervous systems. A cadet looked sick. Did she use biological weapons on prisoners? No, Zektar replied. She tested them on volunteers from her own species first. Humans who offered to risk their lives to help develop weapons against us. The implications horrified the students. A species that would poison itself to find ways to poison their enemies was beyond their understanding. But the most disturbing development came from human leadership. Zektar continued. Admiral Mike Foster had taken overall command of human military operations. He sent us a message on day 12. The screen showed Foster's transmission. He was an older human with gray hair and steady eyes. His uniform was simple but clean, his voice calm and professional. To the Catherian High Command, Foster's recorded voice said, "We are prepared to discuss terms for your surrender. Our conditions are non-negotiable." The cadets gasped. A primitive species offering surrender terms to the mighty Catherian Empire was unthinkable. Foster's terms were simple, Zektar continued. Complete withdrawal from human space, full access to Catherian technology, and payment of reparations for damages caused by the invasion. A male cadet spoke up angrily. "That's ridiculous. Why didn't Admiral Vextel destroy their messenger ship? Because Foster included a demonstration of human capabilities." Zektar replied grimly. The message was transmitted from orbit around Catheros Prime, our most heavily defended world. The screen showed sensor readings from that day. A small human vessel had somehow penetrated the most secure system in the Catherian Empire without being detected. "Foster's ship had been in our home system for 6 days, Zektar explained. They had studied our defenses, mapped our installations, and identified targets for destruction. They could have attacked at any time." Students sat in stunned silence, as they realized what this meant. Human forces had reached the heart of their empire, while their military was still fighting at Earth. But Foster's message contained an even more terrifying revelation, Zektar continued. He told us that the war had been a test of human readiness for a greater threat. The screen displayed star charts showing the galaxy beyond known space. Dark regions marked as unexplored territory seemed to loom with hidden danger. Foster said humans had detected signs of another alien species, Zektar explained. "Something far more dangerous than either humans or Catherians. The war with us had been preparation for that encounter." A female cadet asked in a whisper. "What kind of species could be more dangerous than humans?" Zektar's expression grew haunted. "That's what we asked Nancy Williams. Her answer still gives me nightmares." The recording resumed with Williams' voice, but now it carried a tone of genuine fear. "The signals we've detected suggest a species that doesn't fight for resources or territory," Williams had said. "They fight to eliminate all other intelligent life. And you see consciousness itself as a threat to be destroyed." The classroom fell completely silent as the implications sank in. Williams explained that humans had been preparing for this threat for decades, Zektar continued. They had studied every military conflict in their history, developed technologies, specifically for fighting superior enemies, and trained their entire population for total war. New footage showed human training facilities hidden around their planet. Children learning combat tactics, civilians practicing evacuation procedures, scientists developing weapons in secret laboratories. "The war with us was not about defending Earth," Zektar said. "It was about testing human capabilities and identifying weaknesses before the real enemy arrived." Cadet asked nervously, "How long do we have before this other species attacks?" "According to human calculations, they will reach our galaxy within 5 years, Zektar replied. Foster's surrender terms included an offer of alliance. Human military advisors would help prepare Catherian forces for the coming war. The screen showed images of joint human-Catherian training exercises. Human instructors taught alien soldiers tactics that seemed impossible by traditional standards. Commander Paul Young leads the human advisory team, Zektar explained. He's teaching our troops to think like humans, to fight like humans, to survive like humans. Commander Zektar stood before his students for the final time in this series of lessons. His metal arm gleamed under the classroom lights. His scarred face showed the weight of everything he had shared over the past week. The young cadets sat in absolute silence, their golden eyes fixed on their instructor. "Today I will tell you the end of the story," he began slowly. "The day we learned what humans really are, and why the galaxy will never be the same." The display screen showed a peaceful scene. Human and Catherian representatives sat together at a large table, signing documents under the watchful eyes of both species leaders. The Treaty of Solstation was signed on day 18, Zektar continued. Ambassador Ron Baker represented humanity. It was calm, professional, and surprisingly generous in his terms. A young female cadet raised her hand hesitantly. Commander, why were the humans generous? They had won the war. Zektar nodded sadly. Asked what we asked Baker. His answer revealed the final truth about human nature. He said they didn't fight the war to defeat us. They fought it to recruit us. The screen changed to show footage of the treaty signing ceremony. Human Admiral Mike Foster stood beside Catharian Admiral Vextel, both leaders looking exhausted, but determined. The treaty established the Human Catharian Cooperative Council, Zektar explained. It wasn't a surrender document, it was an alliance agreement. Humans shared their military technology, their tactical knowledge, and their strategic planning with us freely. New images appeared showing joint training facilities where humans and Catharians worked side by side. The cooperation seemed impossible. After such a brutal conflict, Dr. Carol Green led the technology sharing program, Zektar continued. She had spent the war developing weapons to destroy us. After the treaty, she spent her time teaching us to build those same weapons. Applications, her former enemies, now hung on her every word. Commander Paul Young established training programs for our military forces, Zektar said. I taught Catharian soldiers to think like humans, to fight like humans, to survive like humans. The screen displayed training exercises that would have been unthinkable before the war. Catharian troops practiced guerrilla tactics, improvised explosive techniques, and psychological warfare methods. He taught them to ignore traditional rules of engagement, to use any means necessary for victory, to accept casualties that seemed excessive by our standards. A male cadet looked uncomfortable. Why did our leaders allow such training? Because of what Ambassador Baker showed us on day 20, Zektar replied grimly. The proof that everything humans had told us about the coming threat was true. The display changed to show deep space telescope images. Strange shapes moved through the darkness between stars, too large and too organized to be natural phenomena. The Devourers, Zektar said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Baker's evidence showed a fleet of ships larger than anything in known space, moving toward our galaxy at incredible speed. The images were disturbing even to look at. The alien vessels seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating dark wounds in the starfield around them. Baker explained that humans had been tracking this fleet for 20 years, Zektar continued. Every piece of technology they developed, every tactic they perfected, every strategy they planned was designed to fight these creatures. New footage showed human deep space monitoring stations hidden throughout their solar system. Scientists worked constantly, analyzing signals and tracking the approaching threat. The Devourers don't fight for resources or territory, Zektar explained. According to human intelligence, they fight to eliminate consciousness itself. They see intelligent thought as a disease to be cured. A female cadet asked nervously, how could humans know so much about an enemy they've never fought? They captured one of their scout ships 15 years ago, Zektar replied. The ship contained data about Devourer tactics, technology, and philosophy. What they learned terrified even humans. The screen showed images from inside the captured alien vessel. The interior was unlike anything built by known species, with organic curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with dark energy. The scout ship's databanks contained records of 17 galaxies, Zektar said. 17 galaxies where the Devourers had eliminated all intelligent life. Billions of species, trillions of individuals, all destroyed to satisfy their hatred of consciousness. The cadets sat in horrified silence as they tried to process the magnitude of this threat. The Devourers had never faced species that fought like humans. Every civilization they destroyed had followed traditional rules of warfare. New images appeared showing different alien species from destroyed galaxies. They all looked advanced and civilized, with technology and architecture that suggested peaceful societies. These species tried to negotiate, to find diplomatic solutions. To fight honorable wars, Zektar explained. The Devourers destroyed them all because they couldn't adapt their thinking to total warfare. The screen changed to show human military historians studying the records of these lost civilizations. They analyzed every battle, every tactical decision, every moment where conventional thinking had led to defeat. Humans spent 15 years learning from the mistakes of 17 galaxies, Zektar said. They developed tactics specifically designed to fight an enemy that destroys civilizations. A young cadet spoke up hesitantly. But Commander, how could humans hope to succeed where so many others failed? Because humans are not like other species. Nancy Williams explained this to us during her interrogation. She said humans are evolution's answer to extinction. The recording of William's voice filled the classroom once again. But now her words carried new meaning for the students who had heard the complete story. Every species in the galaxy developed intelligence to solve problems, Williams had said. Humans developed intelligence to survive problems that can't be solved. We don't just fight wars, we fight extinction itself. The screen showed footage of human military exercises that seemed impossibly brutal and chaotic to Catherian observers. Soldiers fought in conditions that would kill most species, using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare, Ambassador Baker revealed. That the war with us had been the final test of human readiness, Zektar continued. They needed to know if their tactics could work against superior technology and organized military forces. New images displayed the results of that test. Human forces had not only survived against overwhelming odds, but had turned the conflict into a victory that led to alliance rather than conquest. The treaty included provisions for joint defense against the Devourers, Zektar explained. Human military advisors would train Catherian forces. Catherian technology would enhance human weapons. Together, we would prepare for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The screen showed current footage of the joint military preparations. Massive shipyards built vessels that combined human tactics with Catherian technology. Training facilities prepared soldiers from both species for the coming conflict. Captain Jerry West leads the Combined Fleet Construction Program, Zektar said. His ships are designed not for traditional space battles, but for the kind of impossible warfare humans specialize in. The footage showed vessels that looked more like weapons than ships. They were built for ramming attacks, boarding actions, and kamikaze missions that no civilized species would consider. Lieutenant Diana Clark heads the Psychological Warfare Division, Zektar continued. She's developing methods to disrupt Devourer communications and spread confusion among their forces. New images showed humans and Catherians working together on projects that seemed designed to cause madness rather than destruction. Weapons that attack the mind were as important as those that destroyed the body. But the most important revelation came from Dr. Kevin Stone, Zektar said. His research into Devourer psychology revealed why they hate consciousness so much. Screen displayed Dr. Stone's findings, showing brain scans and behavioral analysis from the captured scout ship data. The Devourers were once a normal species like us, Zektar explained. But they encountered something in their evolution that convinced them consciousness was a threat to the universe itself. The cadet asked quietly, what could make a species hate its own intelligence? They discovered that consciousness might be a virus, Zektar replied. A pattern that spreads through the universe, changing reality itself just by observing it. They believe intelligent thought is destroying the natural order. The implications were staggering. If consciousness itself was somehow dangerous, then every thinking being in the galaxy was part of the problem the Devourers sought to solve. But humans reject this philosophy completely, Zektar continued. They believe consciousness is the universe trying to understand itself. They see intelligence as evolution's greatest achievement, not its greatest mistake. The screen showed human philosophers and scientists working alongside alien colleagues, sharing ideas and building understanding between species.